have some general mission or some passion. Behind that is some stories. What drove you to that? Why is that your mission? Why is that the mission of your company or your brand? And that's what we need to amplify, is those stories.
You guys hear me? Yeah? I know I'm yelling at you. Actually, wait, you take it. Is this one working too? Okay, good.
Dual mics.
So let's not miss the key point here in terms of lead gen and SaaS. How many folks are SaaS companies, right? You have a monthly product, this kind of thing. You might be thinking, oh, this doesn't relate because this is some kind of viral video. This is a one-off kind of thing. Absolutely not. This works in every single category. And we've done it in so many places to demonstrate that these same principles work. We're not selling you any software, right? We're not saying that there's some magic thing that you need to do and buy our course for $97 and I'll tell you all the secrets on how to get rich in 20 days. No, we're showing you that there are fundamental techniques behind how does Facebook decide what shows up. It's when you have a super high relevancy. How do you do that? When you have really high authority content. This is what you need to understand on what content. See, people ask all the time, oh yeah, what's good content? You should make good content. How do you make high authority content? These are the three components of authority. Want to talk about that, or me?
Yeah, so there's three basic components. The first is the content. We've been talking about that quite a bit at length. Is it performing well? Content, like Dennis said, if it has high watch time, these different things, it has more authority than something that doesn't, and also the nature of it, who's saying it. The other components is the people saying it, where it's being said. Again, if Ellen DeGeneres is talking about Isaac's content, his story, that has a lot more authority than just Isaac talking about himself. If Facebook publishes a case study about Blitz Metrics, about Dennis knowing something about Facebook ads, well, that has a lot more high authority than just Dennis talking about himself or beating on his own chest. And that goes into the last one, which is the property. So where it's being published. If you have some throwaway blog, anybody could create a WordPress and then take some high piece of authority content. I could take Isaac's video and share it on my WordPress blog that has no followers, and that's not going to do anything because it's a low authority property. It has nothing going on for it. But if you share it on the Lad Bible or any of these other channels that are a high authority property, and you have high authority content shared by high authority people, you have the trifecta. And that's what you want to look for, especially as you're boosting to influencers. Oh, this is what we're talking about when we do live. Yeah, these people. Sometimes people in the audience start trolling us and purposely sending us messages, so please don't do that. But yeah, yeah, the game is on. No. So this is another one. And while he's pulling this up, too, it all goes back to stories. So I'm from America. How many of you guys have been to America? How many of you guys thought it was kind of like a letdown, like a little bit boring? So being in Europe, there's like a lot more culture, at least for me. Like America is like all new age. Like there's no history there. When you're in Europe, there's all these like side streets and there's like, cobblestone roads and stuff. Everything's telling you a story. And that's why Western Europe has a draw to tourists to come there and eat at these cafes and stuff. Because the floor and the buildings and with the jaded colors, it's all basically telling you some story. In America, there's no story going on. Facebook is the same way. You need to amplify behind your brand, whether it's SaaS or B2B, or you're trying to sell t-shirts, or you're trying to build your personal brand or get speaking engagements, whatever it is, you have some general mission or some passion. Behind that is some stories. What drove you to that? Why is that your mission? Why is that the mission of your company or your brand? And that's what you need to amplify, is those stories. So we have an example here. This happened a few weeks ago.
This next story is anyone's nightmare. A neighbor's dog running into your home, biting you, and then attacking your dog.
The beginning of the frightening scene, of course, captured on doorbell video. Central Utah Specialist Sam Penrod is live where it all went down in Orem tonight. Sam?
Dave and Deanie, it all happened very fast here at this apartment complex yesterday morning. A man went to the hospital with a serious bite to his hand. His dog had to go to the vet, and the dog that attacked is in the shelter tonight and may be put down.
I was just leaving to go to church.
But Logan Young wasn't ready for what happened as he left his apartment yesterday morning.
Just opened the door, dog's right there. I tried to stop it, it bites me, bolts into the living room.
Video shows the boxer get away from a boy who can be seen chasing his dog with a leash. You can hear the commotion inside.
I mean, it's the most unexpected thing you can think of. You just open the door and boom, dog there, try and stop it, it's in your apartment, and then you hear your dog screaming. It hurt. You guys think that's funny, huh? Losing your thumbnail really hurts. Imagine waiting for your fingernail to grow like this far. Anyways. But so it was a crazy incident. So, right, I'm just leaving Easter morning, going to church. I open the door. This dog bursts into my apartment. So the dog was not on a leash. And it had been mean to my dog before. I recognized the dog right away. I tried to stop it. It bit me in the thumb, bit my thumbnail off. This whole, dramatic scene, and then we're getting all these trolls on Facebook like, oh, well, you probably had food in your apartment that was luring the dog in, and what were you doing with your door open, like all this nonsense. Like, I was leaving my apartment, is that allowed, or, do I have that freedom? But the thing behind it was there's like a story, because the cops got involved, of course, and they basically said, well, there's nothing we can really do. We told the owner to keep it on the leash next time, and that's kind of it. I'm like, this guy lives right down the hall from me. I don't want to continue seeing his dog. It's terrifying. He's going to attack me or my dog again, the dog should be put down or something. So we had this story. We thought something needs to be changed. This dog should be put on a leash. If it's not on a leash, there should be some consequences. We had video, so we amplified the story, first to get engagement to people that like dogs and pit bulls in specific. And then once it got engagement, once it got traction, we switched it to a media audience. And then we had all these news channels calling us. So we were on the radio, KSL, which is big in the States, in Utah. It's a top story, Fox News. And that all came through this inception thing, through thinking a few steps ahead. So any goal you have for your business or in general, the goal here was to get more awareness about keeping your dog on a leash and having consequences. If a dog bites someone, you can use this inception tactic, this Facebook for $1 a day, amplifying stories to reach that goal or reach that objective. So we talk about this quite a bit at length. We've actually made a lot of formulas. We talk so much about Facebook that we've made formulas about how to make a 1-minute video and how to make a why video. So to make a why video, there's 3 components. The first is, most people start off a video, they're like, I'm Logan, I work for Blitz Metrics. They introduce themselves. So right away, you're dropping your audience in the first 3 seconds because nobody cares about who you are or what you do or what your job is. They care about the story, the why behind it. So you start off right in the middle of the story, when I was blankety blank. So my story is, when I was 16, I worked at a Subway and I got held up at gunpoint. And when I was in high school, my first job I worked at was at a Subway. I worked with this girl I really liked, and we talked a lot, but I never really did anything about it. I was a little bit nervous to approach her. One night, a crazy thing happened. I'm sitting there on break. I see this guy walking by outside. He has a hat on and a bandana covering his face, and I'm thinking to myself, what is this guy doing? He comes in the store, walks right up to me, pulls out a gun, puts it right on my neck. He tells me to get all the money out of the safe. I go back around, we kind of go back and forth for a little bit. He throws a few punches, he's pretty upset. Eventually he leaves with the money out of the drawer because I can't get into the safe. I won't say it was the scariest moment of my life, but it was definitely the most surreal moment of my life. It changed things a little bit. After that, I asked that girl out to be my girlfriend. She's my first girlfriend in high school. It was awesome, and it's led me to some different beliefs I have today. I work at Blitz Metrics right now. I manage events. I also work with some different small clients, building their personal brands, managing their...
Okay, you see that?
Yeah, so, and it was just funny. We were in Australia a few weeks ago, and we talked about one of our clients is USCCA. They have guns, and no one in Australia owns a gun, apparently, so they were all amazed. But yeah, in America, people have guns, so someone held me up at gunpoint. But the first part of the why story is when I was, so it gets right into it. And then it leads to some belief after, what's your takeaway from that story, from that event that happened when you were a kid and this happened, when you were bullied? It doesn't have to be some dramatic thing either. It can just be a normal occurrence. But when I was, X has happened. Oh, here's Isaac's. Yeah, this is good.
That dramatically.
All right. What? So you've got to be able to segue your live video into what you sell. Because if you come out and try to sell your stuff right away, people know they're being sold. They don't want to hear that. Okay? So you have other people say their why. And the why is how you get people's interest, and then they care about your issue. And this is true for all the motivational speakers. Oh, when I was 18, I was going to commit suicide, and I was so poor, but then this whole thing happened to me, and now I have lots of Ferraris, and I'm rich, and then I want to share this with you. But that's the same 3-part story arc. Just because other people are abusing that technique doesn't mean that it's something that you can't use, right? We think that things like fire can burn people, but fire can cook a delicious steak. Fire can, cook your bitter balls that you're going to have when you walk around the canals and go to the bars tonight, right? So just because other people are abusing the technique doesn't mean the technique is wrong. The technique of the why video is, when I was 15, this whole thing happened to me, and oh my goodness, it was so emotional. And this is what I learned from it. This is how I overcame the problem. When you sell a product or a service, you have overcome some kind of problem that you have made software around. But before you made the software, you had to struggle with some kind of pain, like the oyster had the sand that became a pearl eventually, right? You had to overcome this challenge, this struggle, and you had to do it initially manually, but then after seeing this problem so many times, you said, I want to help the community. I'm going to make software to solve this. I'm going to start a company because this one thing is so valuable to me, it's my Kickstarter story, right? This kind of thing. You have to build that emotional layer into it. That's how people start off. And then you say, and because of this, and now I want to give back, and I made this software, I started this company, the whole founder story. You know the founder story. They all, in hindsight, you can tell this kind of thing that makes sense, 2020, right? Then you can talk about, then this is what our software does. And it does this because I've overcome this stuff myself. And that's how you get these videos to work. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Oh, small, hold on. Here we go. So this is Isaac. He runs the personal brands at GoDaddy. You guys know GoDaddy, right? GoDaddy used to be in trouble for doing things like shooting elephants and having. I think they still have two car racing teams that they sponsor. The Super Bowl ads, all this kind of stuff. So he's in charge of all of the brands of the CEO, all the executives, all of their different employees, and thus us to incept GoDaddy. We're incepting the guy who's in charge of all the brands, who then is teaching all the employees and all their partners. You see how we're playing this 5 steps ahead?
It changed my life forever. I come home from work and my wife tells me that she's pregnant, and shortly after that we find out she's actually pregnant with identical twin boys. I felt like I just won the lottery. I had their careers picked out, I had their colleges picked out, the classes they were going to take, the clubs they were going to join. It was perfect. And then the delivery day came. So the first boy is born. The nurse says something that destroys me. She says, he's not breathing. All these plans, all these things that I had built up in my mind, they didn't matter anymore. And all I wanted to do was rush over there and pick him up and tell him, breathe, buddy, breathe. And I learned in that moment that I had forgotten so much of what was important, the living in the moment.
My boys are now 9 years old, and it is amazing watching them learn new things every day and become these great young men. And the difference is, instead of thinking about, I wonder if they're going to get a football scholarship, taking the time to just enjoy throwing a football with them. That's the difference.
And that is why I am so passionate about helping people take those first steps. Here's the deal, you're never gonna have enough money to do what you wanna do. You're never gonna have the right plan. You're never gonna have the right timing. You just have to go for it, and you have to live in that moment. Plan for the future, but enjoy the steps that it takes to get there and be conscious in that moment. I work at GoDaddy and I help our employees build up their personal brand, and I wanna help you achieve your goals.
So that's Isaac's why video. That was what laid the foundation for all his other videos. You notice he didn't lead with his resume, talk about how he worked at GoDaddy. He led with his story. We know we only have a few minutes left, so we talk about at every conference video for Facebook and every podcast. Everyone wants to know, how do I use video on Facebook? And we want you guys all, I guess our main wish, we want to leave some time for Q&A, but we challenge you guys to make a 1-minute video, make your why video, tell your story or the story of your brand or your product or whatever it is, and put it on Facebook with some other 1-minute videos and just see how it performs and start building off that and let it get some traction. And for Isaac, it's led to him getting speaking opportunities, opportunities to travel. Like I mentioned, he's got picked up with all these subsequent videos he's made. So, he just did it. He just made the iPhone, took him a few takes, but he did his why video, these other videos. And for him, video on Facebook, like it does for everybody, if you do it right and if you pay attention to the signals Facebook's giving you, has worked. So I don't know if we want to talk about AMP for a little bit and take some questions. I think we only have like 10 minutes left, or